My wife left a note saying she never wanted to be a mom, vanished with her boyfriend, and left me to raise our 2 kids alone. 12 years later, my children surprised me with a house, and that's when I taught her a very expensive lesson. I, 45 male, met Pamela in college. I was that nice guy who thought love could fix everything, worked construction summers to pay for school, came home covered in concrete dust and plaster while she bitched about her part-time job at the campus bookstore being totally draining. I'd find her binge-watching reality TV, complaining about how her sorority sisters were fake. The irony was lost on her. The warning signs were everywhere if I'd bothered to look. Like when we moved in together junior year and I discovered she'd never done her own laundry. Literally didn't know you couldn't wash whites and colors together. Or how she'd run up our grocery budget on organic shit and expensive wine, then act shocked when we couldn't afford textbooks. "But Rick, you're so good at figuring these things out," she'd say with that helpless act that made me feel like some kind of hero. But she was gorgeous, and I was an idiot. Tale as old as time. After graduation, I landed a solid gig for a commercial construction company. Good money, decent hours, room to grow. Pamela bounced between creative jobs like a pinball, photography assistant, boutique sales, social media coordinator, basically anything that sounded fun and paid jack shit. I covered rent, groceries, her car payment, her student loan payments. She covered looking pretty and complaining about being undervalued. When Valeria came along 2 years later, I was over the moon, held that tiny girl in the hospital and felt something shift in my chest, like every stupid decision I'd ever made suddenly had purpose. I was going to be the dad mine never was, present, patient, actually giving a damn about this little human. Pamela, different story entirely. Pregnancy was gross, labor was traumatic, and motherhood was apparently a personal attack on her identity, but she played the part well enough for social media. Facebook posts about blessed mama life, professional photos of our perfect family, all the performative shit that made her friends jealous. Behind closed doors, I was doing 90% of the night feedings, diaper changes, doctor appointments. She'd hand Valeria off the second she started crying and disappear for hours to decompress. Shopping therapy, she called it. More like credit card massacre. 2 years later, Andrew came. Another blessing I didn't deserve. Another reason to work harder and be better. By now, I'd figured out Pamela's pattern. She wanted the Instagram moments, but none of the actual work. I handled bedtime stories while she took bubble baths. I did weekend pancakes while she slept until noon with a face mask on. My sister Rachel started dropping by more often. Smart woman. Never liked Pamela but kept her mouth shut until I was ready to hear it. She'd help with the kids, bring actual groceries, and shoot me these looks like she was watching a slow-motion car crash. "You know, she spent 3 hours getting ready for a grocery store trip yesterday," Rachel mentioned casually while folding laundry I'd left in a basket for a week. My best friend Steve was less subtle. "Dude, your wife treats you like a live-in nanny who pays rent," he'd say after a few beers. "When's the last time she changed a diaper without being asked?" I'd make excuses because that's what you do when you're drowning, but too embarrassed to admit the life preserver you married is actually an anchor. "She's adjusting," I'd say. "It's different for women postpartum and all that." The breaking point should have been the Saturday I came home from an emergency job site visit to find 4-year-old Valeria trying to make herself a sandwich while 2-year-old Andrew was crying in his high chair still in the same diaper from that morning. Pamela was on the back patio with a mimosa scrolling through Instagram and completely ignoring both kids. "What the hell, Pamela? How long have they been like this?" She didn't even look up from her phone. I don't know, maybe an hour. "Valeria is fine. She's independent. And Andrew always cries. It's not like he's dying. He's sitting in his own shit and Valeria's 4 years old trying to use a knife because she's hungry." That's when she finally looked at me, rolling her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Oh my God, Rick, you act like I'm some kind of monster. I was watching them. I can see them from here. Maybe if you didn't work all the time, you'd know that kids are perfectly capable of entertaining themselves for 5 minutes. 5 minutes? The diaper is completely soaked through. This has been hours. And look at Valeria's hands. She's got peanut butter and jelly everywhere." Pamela stood up dramatically, throwing her hands in the air like she was the victim. "I can't do anything right according to you. I'm with them all day while you're off playing construction worker. And the one time I try to take 5 minutes for myself, you come home and attack me. Do you know how exhausting it is being stuck here with 2 demanding kids all day? Exhausting. Try working 10 hours and coming home to find your kids neglected because their mother can't be bothered to put down her freaking phone. Don't you dare call me a bad mother," she screamed loud enough that the neighbors probably heard. "I gave up my entire life for these kids. My career, my body, my identity, everything. And you have the nerve to criticize me for taking one moment to breathe." I looked at Valeria, who was now crying because Mommy and Daddy were yelling, and Andrew, who was still strapped in that high chair with a diaper rash that was probably burning his skin, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Your career was part-time retail, Pamela, and nobody asked you to give up your identity. I asked you to be a parent. She grabbed her purse and keys like she was making some grand dramatic exit. Maybe you'll appreciate what I do around here when you have to handle everything yourself. And she left. Just walked out, leaving me with 2 upset kids, a house that looked like a tornado hit it, and the growing realization that this wasn't a partnership. It was me raising 3 children, one of whom happened to be my wife. March 3rd, 12 years ago. Dates burned into my brain like a freaking brand. I just finished a brutal week trying to keep a downtown office renovation on schedule while dealing with permit delays and subcontractors who thought showing up was optional. Pulled into my driveway at 7 p.m., looking forward to helping with homework, maybe playing some catch with Andrew if there was still light. The house was dead quiet, which should have been my first clue something was catastrophically wrong. Found Valeria and Andrew alone, no sign of Pamela. Her car was gone. "Where's Mom?" I asked. Valeria's face crumpled like a paper bag. She left. That's when I noticed the suitcases were gone. Her makeup collection, the expensive dresses, the shoe collection that cost more than my truck payment. All vanished like she'd never existed. On the kitchen counter, propped against the coffee maker like some twisted Dear John letter, was a note. Handwriting I recognized from grocery lists and birthday cards, but the words felt like they were written by a complete stranger. I can't do this anymore. I never wanted to be a mom. Not really. I thought I did, but I was wrong. I need to figure out who I am before I lose myself completely. The kids will be fine with you. You're better at this than me anyway. I'll call when I'm ready to talk. Don't try to find me. That was it. 10 years of marriage, 2 beautiful kids, a life we'd built together, reduced to a freaking note. I stood there staring at that note while my kids watched me, waiting for Dad to fix this like I fixed everything else. Both of them looking at me like I had answers when I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. What killed me most was realizing she'd planned this. While I was working 60-hour weeks trying to provide for our family, she was plotting her escape route. The withdrawal of money, the gradual removal of personal items I'd been too busy to notice, the way she'd been more distant than usual. It all made horrible sense now. Truth is, I wanted to punch a hole in the wall. I wanted to scream until my throat was raw. I wanted to track down my wife and demand she explain how you just abandon your children like they're furniture you're tired of looking at. Instead, I knelt down and pulled both kids into a hug that probably lasted 5 minutes. "It's going to be okay," I told them. That night, after I'd gotten them fed, bathed, and tucked into bed with extra stories and promises that Daddy wasn't going anywhere ever, I went to check our bank account to figure out how we were going to manage financially as a single-income household. That's when I discovered her final screw you. Our joint savings account, the one with $15,000 we'd been building for years to eventually buy a new house. The emergency fund that was supposed to protect our family. Completely empty, cleaned out down to the last penny with withdrawals dating back 3 weeks before she left. While I was working overtime to provide for our family, she was draining our future. I sat in my garage with a beer and Steve on speakerphone, staring at that bank statement like it might magically change. "She left," I said, still not quite believing it myself. "And she took every dollar we had." "Jesus Christ, man, how much?" $15 grand, everything. "That bitch," Steve said without hesitation. "What do you need?" What did I need? A wife who didn't bail when parenting got inconvenient. A time machine to spot the red flags I'd been ignoring. And about $15,000 to keep us afloat while I figured out how to be a broke single dad. "I need to figure out how to survive," I said finally. "You will," Steve replied without missing a beat. "And when you do, she's going to regret every goddamn choice she made." The first month was pure survival mode, made infinitely worse by having exactly $347 in my checking account to cover everything. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to prep lunches, get breakfast ready, squeeze in a load of laundry, and review project schedules before getting the kids dressed and out the door. Drop Valeria at school, Andrew at daycare, then race to job sites trying to keep million-dollar projects on track while checking my phone every 10 minutes for calls from teachers or daycare staff. The financial hit was devastating. Without that emergency fund, every unexpected expense was a crisis. Valeria needed glasses. There went grocery money for a week. Andrew got strep throat and needed prescription medication. Hello, ramen noodles for dinner again. The car needed new brakes. Guess we were walking to the grocery store until payday. Learning to manage everything alone felt like trying to juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle. grocery shopping with 2 tired kids after a 10-hour workday, racing through stores like we were on some twisted game show. Laundry became an overnight operation. Throw loads in after the kids went to bed. Hope I remembered to switch everything to the dryer before collapsing into bed myself. My sister Rachel became my lifeline. She'd pick up the kids when I was stuck in emergency meetings, help with homework I was too brain-fried to understand, and stock my fridge with actual food instead of the cereal and takeout diet we'd been surviving on. "You don't have to do this alone," she'd remind me when I'd try to wave off her help. "That's what family's for." Steve stepped up too, becoming the fun uncle my kids had never really had. Weekend trips to hardware stores turned into adventures, teaching Andrew how to use tools safely while Valeria learned to change oil in my truck. He'd bring pizza and stupid jokes, giving me an hour to shower and remember I was human. Uncle Steve's here became the battle cry that could stop any meltdown, homework frustration, or bedtime drama. He'd show up with his toolbox and some ridiculous project, building a treehouse, fixing the wobbly kitchen table, teaching Valeria how to throw a proper punch, after some kid at school gave her shit. But the hardest part wasn't logistics. It was watching my kids process their mother's abandonment in real time while I tried to hide the fact that we were basically broke. Valeria became hyper-responsible overnight, trying to take care of Andrew and me like she was the adult. Andrew started wetting the bed again and having nuclear meltdowns over tiny things. All that anger and confusion pouring out at random moments. The questions were the worst part. When's mommy coming home? Did we do something wrong? Why doesn't she call anymore? Is she coming to my birthday party? How do you explain to a 4-year-old that some people just aren't built for responsibility? That sometimes adults make selfish decisions that hurt everyone around them? I did my best with age-appropriate honesty, but some nights I'd lie awake wondering if my best was good enough or if I was screwing up my kids for life. Money became tighter than bark on a tree. Daycare costs tripled with overtime fees. Babysitters for evening meetings that couldn't be rescheduled. School supplies and clothes. I picked up side work doing residential estimates on weekends. Valeria and Andrew often coming along to watch me measure rooms and calculate materials. There was this one Tuesday I'll never forget. Came down with the worst flu I'd had in years. Fever pushing 102, body aches that made standing up feel like torture, but we had exactly $23 in checking until Friday. Valeria needed lunch money and Andrew was out of his asthma medication. Called in sick? Not an option when you're the only income keeping your family housed and fed. So, I loaded up on whatever cold medicine we had, packed a thermos of coffee, and spent 10 hours inspecting foundation work in 30-degree weather while feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Came home that night, got the kids fed and homework done, then collapsed on the couch, still in my work clothes. Valeria found me there the next morning, covered me with a blanket, and had breakfast ready before school. We learned to shop with coupons, buy generic brands, and make every dollar stretch until it screamed. Birthday parties were at home with sheet cake and backyard games. Christmas meant thoughtful gifts from the discount store and homemade decorations. But here's the thing that surprised me. Those kids adapted like absolute champions. Valeria became my co-pilot, helping coordinate schedules and remembering appointments I'd forget. Andrew turned into my shadow, wanting to help Daddy with everything from folding laundry to fixing leaky faucets. We developed our own rhythms. Saturday morning pancakes while planning our week. Sunday afternoon movies on the couch. Bedtime stories where I'd make up adventures starring brave princesses named Valeria and knights called Sir Andrew, who always saved the day. It wasn't the family I'd planned, but it was becoming something stronger, something real. Pamela called exactly twice in the first 6 months after she left. Both times drunk, both times completely fucking selfish. Call number 1 came 3 weeks after she abandoned us. I'd just gotten the kids to bed after a particularly brutal day. Andrew had a meltdown at school over a substitute teacher. Valeria was struggling with long division, and I discovered our washing machine was leaking all over the basement floor. The phone rings at 9 p.m., unknown California number. "Hey, it's me," she says, like she just stepped out for groceries instead of abandoning her family. "Where the hell are you, Pamela?" "San Diego. Look, I know you're mad, but I had to do this. I was dying inside, becoming someone I didn't recognize. I met someone who gets me, who sees the real me. Can you put them on the phone?" I should have hung up right then. Should have told her to go straight to hell and blocked her number. Instead, I got the kids because I'm an idiot who thought they deserved to hear their mother's voice. Valeria's face lit up like Christmas morning when I said Mommy was on the phone. Her excitement turned to confusion as Pamela made awkward small talk for maybe 3 minutes before saying she had to go. Call number 2 happened 4 months later. This time she was crying, slurring about how hard everything was. How the guy she'd left us for turned out to be a piece of shit. "He was married," she sobbed. "Had a whole family he never told me about. His wife showed up at my apartment and called me a home-wrecking bitch. I lost my job, got evicted. I'm sleeping on some girl's couch in Fresno. Sounds rough, I said, not feeling an ounce of sympathy. I miss them, she continued. I miss being a family. I made a mistake, Rick. I could come back. We could try again. I'm different now. No, I said into the phone. We're done. Don't call here again. She screamed, threatened to take me to court for parental alienation, called me names that would make my construction crew blush. I hung up and changed our number the next day. That was the last we heard from her for over a decade. Well, except for the divorce paperwork. I filed the next day after she bailed. Called Tommy first thing that morning. No way was I leaving my kids in legal limbo with a mother who'd abandoned them. She didn't contest a single thing. Didn't want the house, the cars, any of our shared assets. Didn't fight for custody or even visitation rights. Just signed every paper Tommy put in front of her and mailed them back from whatever California shithole she was hiding in. The stolen money? Tommy made sure that was part of the record too. 15 grand in documented theft from marital assets with bank records showing the systematic withdrawal pattern proving premeditation. Her lawyer told mine she just wanted out and to start fresh with no strings attached. Fine by me. I got full custody, all marital assets, documentation of her financial betrayal, and she got exactly what she'd earned, nothing. She even waived any claim to alimony, probably because she knew she'd forfeited any right to it the second she abandoned her family and stole our savings. She wanted to disappear from our lives. Mission accomplished. Years passed and what started as pure survival mode evolved into something beautiful. My kids grew into remarkable people. Not despite their mother's absence, but maybe because of it. They learned early that showing up matters more than looking good. That love is action. That family is about commitment and choice, not just DNA. Valeria blossomed into this incredible young woman, valedictorian, full scholarship to state, majoring in social work. She's smart as hell, wickedly funny, fiercely protective of her brother, and completely devoted to our little chosen family. That scared 6-year-old, who tried to make sandwiches while her brother cried, became this confident powerhouse who could command a room, organize charity events, and still make time to help struggling kids with their homework. Andrew grew into the kind of solid young man that makes you proud to be his father. Honor roll, varsity baseball, acceptance to a good engineering program with scholarships. Kid could look at a pile of scrap wood and see a bookshelf, just like he could look at a broken situation and find a way to fix it. Rachel stayed involved every step of the way, becoming the mother figure my kids never really had but desperately needed. She taught Valeria about periods and boys and how to stand up for herself without being a bitch about it. She showed up to every school play, every baseball game, every milestone that mattered, usually with a camera and embarrassing signs. Steve became Uncle Steve officially in our family. The guy who taught my son how to throw a curveball and change a tire. Who took Valeria to father-daughter dances when she was too embarrassed to ask me. We weren't rich, but we rebuilt our stability from scratch. I'd moved up to senior project manager, then eventually started my own small construction company. The financial hole Pamela left us in took years to dig out of, but we did it together, one paycheck at a time. The house became our sanctuary, a place where friends were always welcome, where homework happened at the kitchen table while I cooked dinner and helped with math problems, where Sunday mornings meant pancakes and planning our week together. We had traditions Pamela had never bothered with because they weren't Instagram-worthy. My 45th birthday was approaching. We'd always kept celebrations modest, dinner at home, maybe a small gift. That's just how we rolled in our little family. But Valeria and Andrew were acting strange as hell. Whispered phone calls that stopped when I walked into the room. Mysterious meetings they claimed were study groups, telling me to take the whole weekend off work. What's going on? I kept asking, getting more suspicious by the day. Just trust us, Dad, Valeria would say with this secretive smile. Saturday morning of my birthday, they actually blindfolded me. Full blackout blindfold like I was going to my own execution or something. This is how horror movies start, I grumbled as they loaded me into Andrew's truck. If you're taking me to the woods to bury me, at least make it quick. Relax, old man, Andrew laughed. We're not driving you anywhere to murder you, though we probably should for all those dad jokes over the years. 20 minutes later, we stopped. I could hear Rachel and Steve's voices, which was confusing because I thought we were just going to lunch at that diner we liked. They led me out of the truck, removed the blindfold, and I'm standing in front of this absolutely gorgeous 2-story house with a sold sign in the yard and a massive fucking bow on the front door like it was a present. I laughed because clearly this was some elaborate joke. Okay, very funny. Whose house is this really? We picking someone up? But Valeria was holding keys, tears streaming down her face. It's yours, Dad. We bought it for you. I'm sorry. What now? Andrew stepped forward with a folder full of official-looking documents. We've been saving for 4 years. Every part-time job, every summer internship, every dollar we could spare from scholarships and work study. The down payments covered, first year of mortgage payments are sitting in escrow, and we set up a fund for taxes and insurance. I stood there, keys dangling from my fingers, trying to process what the hell was happening. The house was absolutely gorgeous. 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, big backyard, granite countertops, hardwood floors, everything I'd pointed out in passing over the years as someday when we win the lottery features. Kids, I finally managed. You kids need that money for your futures, for graduate school, for getting started in life. Valeria shook her head. Our future is secure because of everything you sacrificed for us. This is us saying thank you for being the parent we needed when the other one decided to run off and steal our college fund. I pulled both kids into the kind of hug that says everything words can't. My throat too tight to speak for a minute. Rachel and Steve were wiping their eyes while I just held on to the 2 best things I'd ever accomplished. The house was absolutely perfect. Valeria had remembered my comment about wanting a workshop space. There was a detached garage perfect for woodworking projects. Andrew had noted my complaint about our tiny kitchen with no counter space. This one had an island and enough room to actually cook real meals. They'd thought of everything down to the last detail. That night, after everyone left and I was sitting in my new living room, surrounded by boxes from the move, I called both kids. Thank you, I said, voice loaded with everything I couldn't put into words. For everything, not just the house, but for becoming the kind of people who would even think to do something like this. Thank you for showing us what a real parent looks like, Valeria replied. For never giving up on us, even when it would have been easier. For exactly 1 week, life was absolutely perfect. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was dealing with a plumbing emergency in my beautiful new house. Because of course my perfect week had to end with a burst pipe in the master bathroom. Unknown number. Is this Rick? The voice was older, rougher around the edges from what sounded like too many cigarettes and probably too much cheap wine, but unmistakably Pamela. After 12 years of blessed silence, she sounded like she'd aged about 20 years. Jesus Christ, I muttered. What do you want? I saw Valeria's Facebook post about the house. That's quite a gift my children bought you. After 12 years of radio silence, she's claiming ownership like she'd been there for soccer games and homework help. What's your point, Pamela? My point is that I gave birth to those kids. I carried them for 9 months each, went through labor, nearly died bringing Andrew into this world. If anyone deserves a house from them, it's their actual mother. I had to sit down. The sheer audacity was absolutely breathtaking. You abandoned them 12 years ago. You haven't sent a birthday card, a Christmas gift, or a single dollar of child support. And you stole 15 grand from your own family on your way out the door. That doesn't matter. Her voice was rising, getting that shrill quality I remembered from our worst fights. I'm their mother, their blood. Biology doesn't change just because you played house with them and turned them against me. And that money was legally mine, too. Then she really let loose with the crazy. I've been talking to my lawyer about this. You poisoned them against me. Turned them into your little soldiers. That's parental alienation, and I can sue you for damages. They owe me at least half that house's value. Maybe more when the court hears how you destroyed their relationship with their mother. I started laughing. Couldn't help it. Good luck with that legal theory, I said. They're adults who make their own decisions about their money and relationships, but please waste whatever money you have left on legal fees. That's when she completely lost her shit, launched into a tirade of threats and obscenities that would make my roughest construction crew blush, calling me every name in the book, and a few she probably made up on the spot. When she paused to breathe, I cut her off. Goodbye, Pamela, lose this number. But I didn't hang up yet. I had something to say that I'd been saving up for 12 years. Just so we're crystal clear, you don't get to abandon ship for 12 years and then climb back aboard when there's treasure to claim. Those kids succeeded despite you, not because of you. They bought me that house because I was there for everything. I earned it by showing up. You earned exactly nothing. Then I hung up and immediately called my lawyer buddy, Tommy. She wants to play legal games, Tommy said after I filled him in. Let's play. Within 24 hours, Valeria called me, voice tight with controlled rage. Mom just sent me this absolutely unhinged message on Facebook. She's demanding we buy her a house, too, because she's our biological mother and we owe her for giving us life. What did you tell her? I told her she gave us life, but you gave us everything else that actually mattered. Then I blocked her ass. Andrew had gotten an even more deranged message. full of guilt trips and accusations that he'd been brainwashed by his manipulative father, and demanding he call her immediately to discuss his obligations to his real parent. His response was beautiful. My real parent is the one who taught me to throw a curveball and helped with algebra homework at 11 p.m. Thanks for the DNA contribution 12 years ago, but that's where your involvement ended. But Pamela wasn't done with the manipulation. She actually tried calling Andrew directly from yet another number, crying about how she'd changed and deserved a second chance, and how she'd always loved him from afar. Andrew put her on speaker and let Valeria listen in. Big mistake on Pamela's part. I know I wasn't perfect, but I'm your mother, she sobbed. I gave you life. Doesn't that count for something? Valeria leaned into the phone with ice-cold precision. You gave us life and then fucked off for 12 years. That's like building a house, burning it down, expecting credit for the foundation. But I was young and scared, Pamela started. You were 28, not 16, Andrew cut her off. And Dad was the same age, doing everything alone while you were off finding yourself in some random dude's bed. The silence was deafening. Then Valeria delivered the killing blow. You want to know what you gave us? Abandonment issues and a really good example of what not to be. Thanks for the life lesson, Mom. Andrew hung up. They high-fived. I couldn't have been prouder. Over the next week, she tried calling from different numbers, created fake social media accounts to message the kids, and even had the balls to show up at Valeria's apartment building demanding to be let in to talk to her daughter. That's when Valeria told me something that made my blood boil. Dad, she looked horrible, like really bad. Missing teeth, clothes that looked like she'd been wearing them for days, and she reeked of cigarettes and cheap booze. Through Valeria's friends who still had her on social media before the blocking began, we learned more about Pamela's spectacular 12-year failure tour, multiple relationships that ended badly. Apparently, she'd been engaged 3 times to different losers, each one ending when they figured out she was broke and looking for someone to support her. 2 bankruptcies from credit card debt and unpaid rent. At least 1 DUI that we knew of. She'd been fired from job after job. A photography studio for showing up drunk, a retail store for stealing from the register, a restaurant for screaming at customers. Currently, she was working at some payday loan place in Fresno and living in what Valeria described as a studio apartment that looked like a crack den. The most pathetic part, she'd apparently been stalking our social media through mutual acquaintances for years, watching her children succeed and grow into amazing adults from a distance while never once reaching out to congratulate them or acknowledge their achievements. She chose to make contact when there was something material to gain. Rachel had done some digging through mutual acquaintances from the old neighborhood. She was arrested a few years ago for trying to scam some elderly man out of his Social Security check. She told him she was his granddaughter in trouble. Charges were dropped, but still. That's when I decided it was time to go nuclear. Tommy's response was swift and absolutely brutal. He drafted a comprehensive legal document. The letter laid out exactly why Pamela had zero legal claim to anything. Documented her abandonment with dates and receipts, explained that the children were legal adults who could spend their money, however they damn well pleased, and included a fun little calculation that made her shut up permanently. 12 years of child support for 2 children, plus interest and penalties for non-payment, $127,000. But Tommy wasn't finished. In many states, a parent who abandons their children for more than 6 months without contact forfeits most parental rights and can actually be held liable for damages. And then came the cherry on top. That $15,000 she'd stolen from the joint account before abandoning us. With interest and penalties over 12 years, she now owed approximately $28,000 in theft restitution, plus damages for the financial hardship it caused during the first year of her abandonment. The letter's final paragraph was pure poetry. Should your client continue to harass this family or pursue frivolous legal action, we will immediately file for back child support. Documented financial damages related to her abandonment, including therapy costs and lost opportunities, restitution for theft of marital assets, and compensation for the emotional distress caused to minor children. We estimate these damages at approximately $650,000, not including legal fees and court costs. This is not a negotiation. We never heard another fucking word from Pamela, but I wasn't satisfied yet. See, she'd made a critical error by threatening my family and trying to claim credit for achievements she had nothing to do with. So I decided to make sure she understood exactly what she'd lost and could never get back. I had Valeria and Andrew help me compile everything, not just the big achievements, but every small victory, every moment of growth, every milestone that she'd missed by choosing to abandon them. Valeria's high school graduation speech is valedictorian, where she thanked me for showing her that real strength comes from showing up every day, even when it's hard. Andrew's acceptance into engineering school with a full scholarship, 12 years of proof that these kids had built amazing lives without her. Then I did something that probably makes me a petty asshole, but I don't give a shit. I had it all delivered to that payday loan place where she worked, not her apartment, her job, in a nice professional folder with a cover letter that said simply, "Here's everything you missed while you were finding yourself. Congratulations on your choices." According to one of Valeria's friends who still lived in Fresno, she had a complete breakdown at work the next day, screaming at customers about her ungrateful children and their manipulative father. Got herself fired on the spot. 3 weeks later, Valeria got a friend request from yet another fake Facebook account. This time it was Pamela pretending to be a family friend trying to get information about upcoming family events. Valeria screenshotted it and sent it to Tommy, who had one final surprise for dear old mom, a restraining order. Turns out all those fake accounts and attempts at contact constituted harassment under California law. Pamela now legally cannot contact any of us, cannot come within 500 feet of our homes or workplaces, and cannot create social media accounts to circumvent the order without facing criminal charges. The last I heard, she'd moved back in with her father, who I'd always liked. He sent me a brief email, "I'm sorry about my daughter. You did right by those kids. They're lucky to have you." And that was that. 12 years of radio silence, then 1 week of trying to cash in on achievements she had nothing to do with, followed by a spectacular legal and personal meltdown that left her unemployed, legally barred from contact, and living in her childhood bedroom at age 50. Sometimes karma needs a little help. I was happy to provide.